Hello, and thank you for joining us for this webinar on BS 11000 Collaborative Business Relationships. Today's webinar will be presented by Blackmores Principal QHSE Consultant, Paul Robinson. Please feel free to contact us during the webinar via the chat box if you have any questions at all or any technical issues. And following the presentation, there will be an interview with Thomas Finkel, the Europe Quality Manager for CH2M Hill. This will include an interview to explain CH2M Hill's journey to implementing and achieving certification to BS 11000. So the aim of today's webinar is to give an overview to the background of the standard BS 11000 and explain why the standard is needed. It will give you an appreciation of the structure and clauses included within the standard. And Paul Robinson will also explain how to create and maintain relationship management plans, known as RMPs. He'll also provide direction to available supporting guidance materials that will be helpful for you on your journey to implementing BS 11000. And finally, he'll provide an outline with the expected benefits of working within the BS 11000 framework. I'd now like to hand over to Paul Robinson.
Thank you, Mel. In business, as in other walks of life, teamwork can pay real dividends. Companies that work together can often achieve much more in collaboration than they can working alone. Working in partnership with other organisations allows knowledge, skills and resources to be shared effectively, helping all involved to meet mutual goals. Collaborative relationships also lead to better cost and risk management, as well as levels of innovation not normally achieved in a typical client-supplier relationship, thus enhancing your competitiveness and performance. It's important to note that this can be done with either clients, partners, or up and down the supply chain. There are of course many benefits for transferring skills, experience and knowledge. Early studies suggest that financial benefits of up to 30% of total project cost can be achieved through effective implementation of the BS 11000 standard. The standard of course defines new ways of working together to achieve joint objectives. BS 11000 Part 1, also known as BS 11000, is a British standard and is the auditable standard that the certification body will audit. It's supported by BS 11000 Part 2, which is a guidance document and should be read in conjunction with the main standard. The standard provides an overarching framework for managing collaboration between businesses. To give you a brief history of BS 11000, the standard was developed by the Institute of Collaborative Working in 2004 and was originally launched as CRAFT, a set of guidelines and overarching principles. CRAFT stands for Collaboration, Relationship, Assessment, Fulfillment and Transformation. It was soon developed by a committee into PAS 11000. PAS stands for Publicly Available Specification. The next logical step was to turn it into the British standard that we know today. Development has now started to turn it into an international standard. However, we don't yet know its proposed name. Here is the steering group that helped to develop the standard, clauses and framework. Some household names amongst those included. Some of you may well know construction and infrastructure companies mentioned here, and you'll probably or maybe be working with them either now or in the future. But why is BS 11000 deemed to be needed? Well, It's the first recognised standard for collaboration in the world, hence the ISO interest. It uses a completely different clause structure to the more traditional standards such as ISO 9001, ISO 14001 or OSAS 18001. As mentioned earlier, companies can gain more from working together than they can from working apart. And it's important to stress that BS 11000 can be adapted by large or small organisations. The BS 11000 standard doesn't tie organisations down to specifics like other standards tend to do. The requirements can be used to help as a signposting document to pull in and harness other complementary elements of different organisations' management systems, therefore achieving best practice. The BS 11000 clauses identify all the key areas of good practice to be captured from working together. Whilst it recognises that culture and working practices of different organisations may, and probably will, be different. There are perhaps three key issues in any relationship. The first is to appreciate that in every relationship there are three sets of objectives: yours, mine, and ours. A robust relationship must recognise all three and work towards satisfying them all. This must be supported by an effective dispute management process, leading to the development of an exit strategy. Since once people understand the issues around disengagement, it relieves the constraints for engagement. To move on to the body of the standard, BS 11000 is based on an 8-stage approach. This in turn is built around a 3-phase model: strategic, engagement and management. Again, it's important to stress that this model can be adopted and applied to large or small, private or public organisations. To explain the 3 main phases. In the strategic phase, these are the planning stages before actually selecting a partner. This involves raising awareness, developing knowledge and understanding and internal assessment to establish if the business is ready for collaboration. Moving on to engagement, this helps to select the right partner or partners, leading to working together to identify best practices while seeking to create value for both parties. Finally, the management phase works through staying together throughout the whole project, through to final separation with the implementation of a robust exit strategy. We can now look at the 8-stage model that enables organisations to focus their efforts from concept to disengagement. Note that the auditable part of the standard starts at clause 3. Clauses 1 and 2 define the scope and terms and definitions and are not auditable. However, they are applicable. The following stages are typically carried out at a senior management level in the business, starting with awareness. At this stage, we need to appoint a Senior Executive Responsible, or SER, define a collaborative working policy, set the overall strategic business objectives, and define what value you want to obtain from working together. Following this, you can identify and segment opportunities, define the necessary resources, competencies and behaviours, undertake an initial risk assessment, establish an implementation plan, and initiate the Relationship Management Plan, or RMP. As mentioned, this is done at a business level, so the RMP will be established prior to the appointment of a team at the project level. Effectively relating with external organisations can be challenging and can be constrained by internal barriers, so it's crucial to ensure that efforts are focused on those relationships where collaboration will deliver real value. Moving on to knowledge, this establishes objectives for each opportunity. So we need to identify skills and competencies of individuals, identify ways of capturing and sharing knowledge, develop the business case for each opportunity, establish objectives, define communication channels, and also analyse the conditions that might put pressure on the relationship. We also need to determine customer requirements, identify potential value to be gained from the relationship, identify possible partners, and develop a draft exit strategy. We also need to consider business continuity and review plans and continue to develop the RMP. So you can see the need to continually revisit and review the RMP as the collaborative relationship progresses. Moving on to internal assessment, we need to identify the profile of what a preferred partner might look like, appoint your own project leadership, establish the partner selection criteria, identify existing skills and knowledge, and identify any training to close any gaps in that knowledge. You can continue to develop the action plan and review and continue to develop and update the RMP. Understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your own organisation is critical if collaboration is to be successful. This includes processes, skills and experience compatible with the desired outcomes. Moving on to partner selection. There is a need to nominate potential partners, undertake an evaluation using the defined methodology, and identify possible joint objectives. Then you can enter into negotiations in order to finally select your preferred partner. Again, once this has been done, the RMP needs to be revised and updated to reflect the changing status of the project and the relationship. Finding the right partner is critical, but frequently is based on assumptions or long-standing traditional relationships that can simply migrate. Often this is not the case, so it's important to understand the profile you're looking for, how you will evaluate their capability to collaborate. Moving on into the working together phase. We need to establish the governance and organisational structure required to support the relationship and finalise the joint objectives of the collaboration. Both parties need to appoint a mutually agreed leader and agree joint roles and responsibilities for the team. We need to have processes to capture joint knowledge and expertise from both parties, identifying how each party will communicate with each other, and undertake a review of joint venture risks now that a partner is in place. There's a need to appoint a risk manager and determine what joint processes will be used to manage the project from an operational standpoint. Contractual agreements should be agreed, and performance measures and KPIs jointly agreed and accepted. In addition to this, audits of the collaborative process should be planned and implemented, and corrective action processes put in place. This is where ISO 9001 procedures again can be utilised to good effect. All of this again needs to be reflected in a further revision to the RMP. Establishing joint governance for collaborative programs and integrating this with effective contracting arrangements requires careful attention, taking into consideration the joint objectives and those of the individual partners, and ensuring the incentives and measurement will support collaborative behaviours. Moving on to value creation. We need to be able to record and review if value is being created from working together. Joint improvement teams can help to identify possible areas of improvement which should be built into a plan for action. Value drivers might be different for each partner, and this should be recognised and understood. We need to review processes, and these should be implemented to enable learning from the experience of working together, and if it's possible, for new ideas and innovation opportunities to be jointly pursued. The key to maintaining a strong relationship is to ensure that it remains current and drives innovation to bring additional value to both partners through continual improvement programs. Moving into staying together. This enables all of the processes to be put into action during the life cycle of the project or collaborative venture. We need to be able to monitor and measure the relationship in terms of outputs, deliverables, trust and behaviours, both tangible and intangible measures. Joint management needs to be consistent in their approach to the relationship, and continual innovation opportunities should be pursued where possible. The senior executive responsible and the management team are required to periodically review performance of the relationship. This can be done at regular meetings. Any issues arising should be resolved through a jointly agreed dispute process. At this point, the exit strategy should be firmed up and agreed by both parties, and once more the RMP can be revised. Joint management is crucial if relationships are to mature and support people and the business environment. Effective performance and behaviours should be monitored along with issues and disputes, which will be inevitable, but can also be used to strengthen relationships if handled effectively. Finally, the exit strategy will enable both parties to walk away and hopefully feel that they can both work together again in the future. Regular project reviews should consider if any of the triggers that may cause the exit strategy to be implemented have been tripped. In the worst case, business continuity should also be considered, particularly in the case of a forced exit, or if unforeseen circumstances cause the collaboration to fail. But, assuming that all's gone well, both parties may wish to identify future possible collaborative opportunities. And again, the RMP should be maintained and updated through this whole process to include the exit strategy and the various trigger points. Maintaining this joint exit strategy is important to keep the partners focused. At the same time, having clear rules for disengagement will frequently improve engagement through the life of the relationship and into the future. So to summarise, we've looked at awareness, knowledge, internal assessment, partner selection, working together, value creation, staying together, and finally, an exit strategy. Moving on now, we can talk about the Relationship Management Plan, or the RMP. You'll hopefully understand by now that the Relationship Management Plan is a key document required by the standard, and it supports the project throughout all the stages. It's good practice to identify stage gates and prompts when the RMP should be updated throughout the 8-stage process. The RMP can be used to provide links to other documents, rather than copying them into the document or repeating information. The RMP must be kept up to date at all times throughout the 8 stages of a relationship. However, it's important to note that some information contained within the RMP will disappear as the project matures. For example, once selected, you wouldn't necessarily want your chosen partner to see what the process was for selecting them, or, worst case, a possible list of reasons why you wouldn't want to work with them. There are a number of things that the RMP does. Most importantly, the RMP can be considered to be the glue that holds the relationship together and will evolve as the relationship evolves. It's important to note also that the RMP can be assessed by your chosen certification body at any time in the 8-stage process. Both parties at the appropriate stage should buy into the RMP. It's important to consider also that if the other party that you're entering into a collaborative relationship with has BS 11,000, they may have their own RMP, and this can be adopted, again, if agreed by both parties. You may wish to develop supporting guidance documents to help with the creation and maintenance of the RMP. So moving on to the benefits of implementation and certification. The standard creates a robust framework and a neutral platform for establishing effective collaborative programs for mutual benefit. Its core value is commonality of application between delivery partners, a better integration and integrity of supply chains. BS 11000 was developed through pan-industry input and thus is not sector specific, therefore providing a base for broader adoption and engagement. The standard provides a common foundation and language for relationships between the private and public sector. BS 11000 also provides a basis for benchmarking the collaborative capability of organisations both internally and externally. BS 11000 also helps to improve customer confidence and encourages organisations to focus on developing more effective joint risk management programs. These can be related to both the challenges of specific programs as well as those linked to relationship aspects of collaborative working. The standard specifies a consistent yet flexible approach which provides a foundation for repeatability across programs and increased opportunity to focus on developing value. The standard also provides a consistent and structured approach for the integration of collaborative working practices within operational procedures, processes and systems that may already exist. BS 11000 establishes a baseline to support resource development and training, as enhanced skills and interchangeability of personnel will increase collaborative capability. Organisations adopting the principles of BS 11000 can choose to have a third-party certification body assess their compliance with the standard and issue a certificate to that effect. Not only is this proof to stakeholders that best practice is being followed, but the rigour and independence of the process guarantees consistency of implementation whilst driving continual improvement. So in summary, BS 11000 can help any organisation identify how relationship management can help achieve its business objectives, evaluate the benefits of entering into a single or multiple partnership. It helps you to select the right partner to complement your objectives. It builds a joint approach based on mutual advantage. It develops added value from the relationship. It measures and maintains maximum benefit and helps you to develop and execute an effective exit strategy. And as discussed, due to the fact that BS 11000 can in theory be implemented in any organisation anywhere in the world, it's only a matter of time before it becomes an ISO standard. Work continues with the development of the ISO. At this time it's in the early stages of development. The links above provide some useful guidance on the BS 11000 standard. As mentioned earlier, we would recommend that you obtain a copy of BS 11000 Part 2 and read it in conjunction with the auditable standard. Part 2 provides guidance and examples of good practices that can be adopted by any organisation implementing BS 11000. Thank you very much for listening to this webinar on BS 11000 Collaborative Relationship Management. I hope you'll find the information useful when working in collaboration with partners and suppliers. Here are our contact details should you wish to discuss the implementation of BS 11000 further. I shall now hand over to Melanie Blackmore of Blackmores for an interview with Thomas Finkel of CH2M Hill. In this interview, Mel will be exploring CH2M Hill's experience of implementing BS 11000 with Blackmores and the implementation that it had on the organisation and its stakeholders. Over to you, Mel.
Thank you, Paul, for that very informative presentation on BS 11000. Moving on, I am absolutely delighted to be joined by one of our BS 11000 clients, Thomas Finkel, who's the Europe Quality Manager at CH2M Hill. CH2M Hill is a global leader in consultancy, design, engineering, construction, operations and programme management. The organisation has 26,000 employees on 6 continents, and they work on some of the most complex and exciting projects in the world. Hence, collaborative relationship management is at the core of business operations. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Thomas. I really appreciate you giving us your feedback on your experience of implementing BS 11000. So, may I ask, why did CH2M Hill implement BS 11000?
CH2M Hill implemented BS 11000 for a number of reasons. One, we could see it becoming a differentiator in the marketplace. We can see it becoming an entry-level requirement to access to pre-qualifications. A number of our joint venture partners and associates have also gone down this route of achieving BS 11000, and it was clear that we would need to do the same. But also I think it documents things that we're already doing. It gives external certification to what we have already done. And we already do very much what is required by BS 11000. I think this just brings a little bit more focus to it, gives a little bit more information, and sort of fixes in people's minds some of the things that they need to do.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And what benefits have your partners gained from working with you within the BS 11000 framework?
Well, certainly in 2 of our projects that we've added into our program have certainly gained a benefit, because one of them has already achieved BS 11000 themselves, so obviously this complemented our arrangement with that particular joint venture partner. And in the second one, we have brought some of these processes to bear into the arrangement itself, so things like risk management and looking at knowledge management, knowledge transfer. So we've brought some of these processes to our client.
Great. And what were the main challenges when implementing BS 11000?
Lots, I think. One, obviously, it's a new standard, so there's not a huge amount of experience out there at the moment in terms of application of BS 11000. So obviously we had a new standard to get to grips with, and actually just ourselves figuring out how we would comply with the standard, what documentation would we require, templates, and then introducing it to project teams who are already doing some of these aspects but needed to maybe adjust some of the processes and procedures that they were following, and introduce them into the project teams, bring people awareness of this new standard, and just make sure that they understood that this wasn't additional work, it was really just document what they already done.
And have you been able to reduce any risks to the business?
I think not necessarily reducing risks to our own business, but certainly reducing risks to our clients' projects, because obviously one of the key things is a joint risk management process and register within the projects themselves. So I think in terms of the projects, we've probably reduced risks because there's a greater emphasis on looking at project-wide risks rather than necessarily at our own personal corporate risks, which CH2M Hill already have a very defined process and a very robust process, but introducing something more robust into joint arrangement with our partners has been good.
Excellent. Okay. And have there been any quantifiable cost savings as a result of the project?
I think it's such early days, it's very difficult to say whether we have had cost benefits at this moment in time. I think we probably have. I think actually being able to quantify them is probably a bit early at this moment, given that we've only really been working on this standard over the last sort of 10 to 11 months. So yes, we need to gather some metrics to actually show whether we've actually made any benefits out of it.
Okay.
Or quantify benefits. We've definitely made benefits, it's just whether they can be quantified in terms of cost.
Yes, because I think one of the requirements of the standards is to analyse the value provided through the collaborative relationship management. So I guess a year from now that will become more transparent.
Yeah, and I think actually it's determining yourself actually what is the benefit. You know, the benefit might not necessarily be a financial benefit. It could be something in relation to knowledge management. It might be better processes, better procedures. It may well be in terms of transfer of knowledge, more enhanced exit strategy if we ever get to having to apply the exit strategy. So it's not necessarily a financial benefit.
It's very true, yes. So what cultural or intangible benefits have been seen throughout the project? So, for example, increased levels of trust or behaviours?
I think in terms of ourselves, I would say that they actually sum up some of the intangible benefits very well, in that certainly behaviours, because obviously one of the parts to the standard is looking at behaviours. It also looks at trust, it looks at competencies, it looks at more of what I would call soft areas of application of standards. So it's not, have you got a deliverable, has it been checked, has it been approved? It's not an ISO 9001 type standard. It is much more around soft issues. So therefore I think yes, being able to do robust behavioural assessments on members of staff and projects has been good.
Okay, great. So what have been the benefits of having a relationship management plan in place compliant to BS 11000?
For us, obviously, we have a very robust project execution plan already on all of our projects. But having a relationship management plan actually documents things, and again, documents some of the soft issues that we maybe have with clients. So you bring more rigour to risk assessment, you bring more rigour to capture knowledge and knowledge management and how you transfer that across the joint venture or the arrangement. One of the things that I've certainly seen is people giving more thought to how will this relationship end. So an exit strategy, knowing, and what are the triggers for an exit strategy? You know, what we don't want is to any of the arrangements to end acrimoniously. They may end for something quite serious rather than just a contract coming to an end, but actually doing that in an adult manner, I think. So documenting things in the relationship management plan just gives you that more rigour to what you do, how you do it, who does it, who are the key posts within that relationship.
Okay. You mentioned about exit strategy. Now that you've achieved certification to BS 11000, there isn't any exit strategy now. It's all about continual improvement. And so on that note, may I ask what are the next steps following certification?
I think next steps obviously is holding workshops, spreading the news, spreading the knowledge, capturing the lessons learned from the first 3 projects that we put through the actual system, and then extending it into new opportunities, new arrangements, assessing more people. Will BS 11000 be applicable? Because obviously one of the beauties of the standard is actually it helps you to make a decision as to whether you should enter into a BS 11000 type scenario with particular partners.
Okay. So on that note then, where do you see the main benefits over, say, the next 5 years?
I think what it will bring is more rigour. I think it will become more deeply embedded into our existing procedures and processes, such that it becomes something that's just done as part of a project. It won't be something special. It won't be, oh, that project's applying BS 11000 as opposed to that one not. I think it just will be something that will be done automatically on the project. Whether they all come under the certified programme, that will be something that we'll see over time. I think with time it will give us more opportunity to gather metrics, look at the benefits, look at the type of projects where it is actually useful and where it might not be useful. So I think we'll just grow into the standard. It was something that will become organic. We will this time, say 12 months' time, we'll do another analysis, look and think, is it working, is it not, what do we need to change? It's all going to drive continual improvement. But I think in 5 years' time, we'll be thinking about a completely different standard. BS 11,000 will be just second
Might be an
nature.
ISO by then.
It might be an ISO by then, but I think it will just be second nature, to be honest.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your input. That's been really helpful, and it's provided an insight into, the benefits and the challenges that you've encountered along the way. So thank you very much,
You're
Thomas.
welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.